Imagine you're walking outside on a clear blue afternoon. You look up, and there it is, a plane slicing across the sky, leaving behind a long white line that stretches for miles. Sometimes it fades in seconds. Other times it spreads out and turns into a thin cloud that lingers for hours. You stop and wonder, if it's just a plane, why does it leave something behind it all? And more importantly, what is that white trail really made of? Before we get into it, make sure you subscribe and leave a like because the sky above you is hiding more everyday mysteries than you think. Now, here's the surprising truth. That white trail isn't smoke, it isn't fuel being dumped, and it definitely isn't something being secretly sprayed. What you're actually seeing is something far more ordinary and far more fascinating. When a jet engine burns fuel, it doesn't just create thrust, it also produces heat, carbon dioxide, and a large amount of water vapor. Yes, water, the same basic substance that forms clouds, fog, and even your own breath on a cold morning. But here's where it gets interesting. At cruising altitude, planes fly about 30,000 to 40,000 feet above the ground. Up there, the air temperature can drop to minus 40 degrees Celsius or even colder. It's an environment so cold that exposed skin would freeze almost instantly. So when that hot, humid exhaust from the engines hits the freezing air, something dramatic happens. The water vapor condenses instantly into tiny droplets and then freezes into microscopic ice crystals. Those ice crystals cluster together and become visible as a long white streak across the sky. In other words, that trail is basically a man-made cloud. And here's what surprises most people. This effect isn't unique to airplanes. On a freezing winter day, when you exhale and see your breath fog up in front of you, you're creating a miniature version of the same phenomenon. Warm, moist air meets cold air. Condensation happens. A visible cloud appears. The only difference is scale. Now, you might have noticed something strange. Some trails disappear quickly, while others spread out and seem to cover half the sky. This is where most people get confused. It's not about what the plane is doing differently, it's about the air around it. The upper atmosphere isn't uniform. In some areas, the air is dry. In others, it's already close to being saturated with moisture. When the surrounding air is dry, those ice crystals evaporate quickly, and the trail vanishes in seconds. But when the air is humid and cold enough, those ice crystals stick around. They can even pull in additional moisture from the surrounding air, growing and spreading into thin, cirrus-like clouds. So the real reason some trails linger isn't because of what's coming out of the plane, it's because of what's already in the sky. And here's another detail most people don't realize. These trails have a name. Contrails, short for condensation trails. Scientists have been studying them since the early days of high-altitude flight. In fact, during World War II, contrails made aircraft visible to enemy pilots from miles away. Something as simple as frozen water vapor could reveal an entire formation in the sky. But there's an even deeper layer to this story. Contrails don't just decorate the sky, they can actually influence the climate. Because they form high-altitude ice clouds, they can trap some of the Earth's heat. While each individual trail is small, collectively, across thousands of daily flights, they do have a measurable effect. Not dramatic, not apocalyptic, but real. And that's the part that's easy to miss. What looks like a simple white line is actually a delicate balance between temperature, humidity, physics, and jet propulsion, all happening 10 kilometers above your head in a place you rarely think about. So next time you look up and see those white streaks crisscrossing the sky, you'll know you're not seeing smoke. You're not seeing pollution being sprayed. You're watching a brief cloud being born from the meeting of heat and cold, moisture and ice. You're watching the atmosphere respond in real time. And maybe that's the most fascinating part, because it reminds us that even something as ordinary as a passing plane is interacting with invisible forces we barely notice. Forces that shape weather, climate, and the very air we breathe. The sky isn't empty, it's dynamic, sensitive, responsive, and sometimes the simplest white line overhead is proof of just how alive it really is. So the next time someone points at a trail and asks what it is, you won't just have an answer. you'll understand the process behind it, and that understanding changes how you see the sky forever. If you enjoyed this breakdown, leave a like, share it with someone who's always wondered about those trails, and subscribe for more explanations of the everyday mysteries hiding in plain sight. Because sometimes the simplest things hide the most misunderstood truths.